been a vicar, but I haven't always been a Christian. And so I grew up, I wasn't in a Christian family, but I came to faith in my mid-20s, by which time I was already a lawyer. And but I knew from that point on that there was a plan, there was something that I would be giving myself to, and justice is something which I'm passionate about, always have been passionate about. And as a lawyer in those early days as a Christian, I remember representing a guy. I couldn't forget representing this particular guy because I was always with him in court. He was always committing offences, and he usually stole other people's cars. That's what he did. He had a long list of previous convictions, but on one particular occasion he decided he was going to do something a bit different. And I got a phone call one night from the police saying that they had this chap in custody, and this was my job. I said, on what is the basis of your arrest? And they said, well, let's put it this way, Mr. Dybel, we haven't got any fingerprint evidence. I said, okay, well, what is the basis of the arrest of my client? He said, well, let's put it this way, we have some very firm evidence that your client is the person who's committed this offence. I said, well, just come on, just tell me what it is before I come out to the police station. And they said, well, your client has broken in to a school in Cromer as it happened to be. He has gone down the corridor to the office. He has gone into the office, he has switched on the photocopier, he has photocopied his face and left the photocopy in the bin. So he was banged to rights, this guy, as we lawyers would say. And I remember on another occasion, representing this person, he was absolutely adamant that he was innocent. He said, I haven't committed this offence, Mr. Dybel. He said, I've done all those other things. He said, but I haven't done this one. He said, I want justice. So I said, well, that's all very well, but actually this side of the grave, you will never have absolute justice. And the other side of the grave, what you'll want is mercy. You see, justice, if there is no God, is just something which is relative. You can't have absolute justice without there being an absolute authority. It's just relative otherwise. You see, in some societies, we would think it is unjust for us to kill our neighbour. We're called to love our neighbours. But in other societies, they eat their neighbours. Historically, in islands in the South Pacific, they have practiced cannibalism. It's part of their culture. It's part of the way that they do things. And they wouldn't dream of thinking that it was unjust to do that. Some of that practice apparently still continues. And in fact, there's an explorer who's reached one of these tribes. They're a tribe called the Korowai tribe in Indonesia and New Guinea. And they allegedly still practice cannibalism. And Paul Raphael is an explorer who's recently made contact with them. And he said this: eating men is part of their revenge-based justice system. So what is justice? Is it something which is simply relative? Is it something which we say it's right for this society, but it's not right for that society? Because if that is the case, we simply make it up as we go along. Or is it something which some other authority says this is right and this is wrong? Celebrate's probably the wrong word. Holocaust Memorial Day. I went to Auschwitz 2 years ago and saw the places where they took the people who had been taken from their homes and placed into ovens, into the gas chambers, into wherever else that they put them. 6 million people murdered. 6 million people murdered, effectively at the whim of one person. Even if that person is brought before a court of law, even if that person is tried and punished with the ultimate punishment, is that justice? You see, justice is something that is only possible, ultimate justice is only possible if there is a God. So the title that I have is, does God care about injustice? Well, yes, God does care about injustice, for without God, there can be no ultimate justice. It's just we do what we want in this world. We might do it constrained by our social construct, but we can do it and ultimately get away with it. Whereas if there is a God of justice, then there is a God of judgment who holds us to account for how we behave, who holds us to account for the things we do in our lives. And I, for one, want that. My heart cries out for justice. My heart cries out for things to be done correctly. You know, there are 45 million people in the world today who are involved as slaves. They're held against their will. How can that be right? How can that be just? In a world where we have so many things, where we are blessed in so many ways, how can 45 million people not be able to get up in the morning and choose what they're going to do that day? Who are forced into sexual exploitation or forced labour. That's not just, and everything within us cries out, we want there to be justice. The trouble with crying out for justice because of that wrong is, can we, each one of us, say that we live correctly? We live absolutely justly? Or are there things that we do which aren't right? 4/5 of the world's population exist on 1/5 of the world's resources. Okay, let me say that again. 4/5 of the world's population exist on 1/5 of the world's resources. And we are in the 1/5 that use up 4/5 of the world's resources. Is that just? Is that right that we should have so much just because we are born into affluence? We are born into a society which has so much and is able to take advantage of all the things that it has. Is that right? Because if it isn't right, then it's not just. And if it's not just, then we are not behaving justly. And if we're not behaving justly, if we are calling on the one who is ultimate justice to save the 45 million slaves, to make sure that there is a balance when people like Adolf Hitler do something as horrendous as he did, or when we see people abused or insulted or murdered in our streets, when old people are mugged in their homes, and we say this is wrong. The danger in crying out for justice is that if God is going to act justly in that situation and intervene, then he must intervene in every situation to act justly. As one person put it, before you call on the garbage collector, you need to make sure you're not in the garbage. Justice. Does God care about injustice? Yes, he does. Why then does he not intervene in situations where there is so much injustice? Well, I want to suggest to you that he does. I met a girl in Mumbai who had been trafficked into a brothel at the age of 13. She had been raped 20 times a day for 3 years. It was one of the most humbling experiences of my life. There will always be in my heart and in my mind this conversation that I had with this girl who by this stage was 19 years old. She said to me, I cried out to God every day to send someone to save me. I said, did you know who this God was that you were crying out to? And she said, no, I had no idea. They have 30 million gods in the Hindu religion. She had no idea who it was. But I was trafficked into the brothel with a girl who was a Christian. She believed that Jesus is the Saviour. The name Jesus means he saves. And so I prayed to Jesus that he would save me. 3 years into the time that she was in the brothel, an organisation called the International Justice Mission, a Christian organisation who pray every single day for justice in the world. They sent investigators into this particular brothel. Having sent investigators in, they sent a team in to rescue the girls. There were 11 girls in the brothel. They saved 3 of them, got 3 of them out, and 8 of them were hidden behind a wall. This girl was saved as one of those 3. Saved by Christians who had been prompted by a God of justice to act justly. One of the Old Testament prophets, Amos, says, let justice flow like rivers and righteousness like a never-failing stream. And as Christians, our hearts are changed to help those who are lost and least and at the edges, those who are trapped and enslaved. One of the calls that Jesus places on us is to set the captives free. And so these Christians were going in and they saved this girl and 2 others out from that situation. She was so brave that she got permission from the government to lead another raid on the same brothel because she knew where the 8 girls were, and they were all saved out of that situation. Those who cared for her when she came out were Christians. And so she looked me in the eye and she said, I know it was Jesus who saved me. And so now I'm a follower of Jesus. Her heart had been changed by the God who changes our hearts so that we would be people of justice. It's impossible, I would suggest, to be a follower of the God of justice without being a person who is motivated by injustice. You want to do something about it because we're made in the image of God. So God does care about injustice, which is why, if you look back through history, and all the things that have been done, I say all, that's probably a general, were motivated by a love of God, which gave them a love of other people. So you look at this whole school system. It was Lord Shaftesbury, a Christian peer of the realm, who said it was wrong that children were just running around the streets. And so he set up the ragged school system. Our school system comes out of that. Our hospital system comes out of monasteries and convents, taking people in and caring for them, because otherwise they would have simply died in their poverty. And you look through all sorts of situations where we now have justice in our society. There is a Christian root to that having happened. So yes, God does care. He cares deeply about injustice. He cares so deeply that he wants each and every one of us to know his justice and to know his love. And it was at the cross, actually, where the justice of God and the mercy of God met. Because if there's justice, then there's judgment. So we have a problem if we live in an unjust way. There's a slavery index where you can work out how many slaves were involved in the production of your lifestyle. So just as we are here today, probably 17 slaves had at some point participated in my ability to stand here wearing these clothes and to eat this food and to drink this tea and to do all the other things that we do. I can't stand before God and say, I'm a good guy. I've got it all right. I can only stand before God and say, Lord, I'm sorry, and I need forgiveness and I need a Saviour. He gave us that Saviour at the cross, for at the cross, Jesus paid the price for the things that we do not do, that we should do, and the things that we don't do, the things that we do that we shouldn't, and the things that we don't do that we should. Justice is best seen at the cross of Calvary. Mercy is seen there too. So I hope that's helpful. I hope that provokes some thoughts and some discussion, and I'm really happy to have any questions that you'd like to put to me about the issue of justice. Please. Maybe. So. Great, so you got that then? Yeah. Super. Any thoughts? Yeah.
When you were a lawyer, and when you were sort of starting out and you were so passionate about justice,
Yeah.
what brought you to Christ?
What brought me to Christ? It wasn't actually a justice issue that brought me to Christ. It was the fact that I thought I ought to have my son christened, to be honest. And so my wife and I went along to the local parish church because my mum would have liked it and Joe's parents would have liked it. And so we went along, and I got at this Bible study and at this church service, and the only other young couple in the church invited us on a Bible study. And at the time I thought, I don't want to go on that. What did I do that for? You know, I'm quite happy, I'm a lawyer, my life's together, everything's sorted, nice house, nice car, nice family, I'm fine. I thought, actually, I think there is something more. I think there is something, I don't know what, but I think there's something. I don't believe that this life is it. And therefore, this guy who could speak, he could read the Bible in the original Greek, He had a double first from Oxford in classics, and was, I was a lawyer with a brain that sort of size. He was a lawyer with a brain this sort of size. And so I thought, I'm going to go along and listen to what he's going to say. So 2 years of looking at the Bible. At the end of that, I thought, I think this is true. And if it's true, it changes everything. Because if there is a God in heaven who A, is absolutely just, and B, absolutely loving, then I need to do something about my life. It matters. The C.S. Lewis said, the one thing that Christianity is not is of middling importance. It's either of total importance, or it's of no importance. The question for us is, which is it?